All right, we're recording. This is Chris Nielsen with Breaking Up with Fear. I have the pleasure to have James Early with me today, and we were talking about some fear stories earlier. James, introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about you and how you came to being right here.
Okay. Hey, Chris, it's good to be here with you this morning, and thanks for this opportunity to chat with you.
Yeah.
I am a Bible teacher. For the last 11 plus years, I've been doing Bible study workshops at a nearby federal prison, and I've been able to help people. I've been able to help people and discover themselves and rediscover their faith. And I've realized that I wanted to get that message out in a bigger way. So I'm actually working on a book right now about prayer, and I've got a podcast and a blog, and it just makes me really feel good inside when someone else comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mr. Early, my faith is restored because of what I learned in your Bible study class." And it's like, well, I don't think I really did anything, but I facilitated them rediscovering it for themselves. So where I'm focused right now is helping people really get back to the original Christianity of Jesus, the original spiritual teachings of what Jesus is all about, and not all the 2,000 years of add-ons that we've attached to his message. Want to help people, learn to pray more effectively and experience God's healing power in their lives. And to me, it's all on the focus of Jesus' original message of the kingdom of heaven is at hand and the kingdom of God is within you. And when you have that mindset, it totally changes your perspective on yourself, on other people, on the world, your relationship to everything. And anyway, that's kind of what I'm all about right now.
Well, I love that. Well, the one thing I wanted to touch on there is when you say the kingdom of heaven is within you, what are you pointing towards there? What are you saying there?
Well, a kingdom is where there's a king. And to me, that's God. I don't mean a big man in the sky, but I mean divine love itself. And so if divine love is the king that is reigning, that's in charge of the government in my life, inside of me, if that's what's in control of me instead of fear and doubt and revenge and greed and pride and all those things that usually influence us, if you're letting divine love be in charge of your life from the inside out, it changes the way you think, the way you act, everything. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me because I'm for I see a lot of Christianity that doesn't seem so Christian to me. And
yeah.
And with divine love inside, if people are letting divine love fill their life, if they can feel that inside them, oh my gosh.
Then everyone you see is your brother or your sister. And it's scary sometimes to realize that, but it's amazing. I've had some amazing experiences with people that I never would have talked to or tried to help, but I felt a love for them. And it wasn't me personally, it was God impelled. And, it's a wonderful feeling.
I love what you're doing. And I love that, divine love, if you can feel it inside yourself and you can then see it inside of others.
Oh. Right. And it's not something I have to manufacture.
Right.
It's not working hard, to love somebody, because sometimes it seems like, some people you have to work hard at it. But if you realize you're not the source of that love, you're just the manifestation of it.
Yeah.
Then it's a very different ball game.
Yeah. I look at a little bit of my own life. A friend of mine was he was so attractive up on stage, and he just would look at the audience with pure love. And I'm a speaker, trainer, facilitator, and he would look at the audience with love and I go, how do you do that? I don't like most people. And that was me at the time. And no wonder I was turning people off. I didn't, they were annoying. They weren't.
I don't feel that from you at all. So I've
changed. I'm a changed thing. I actually love people now. And I didn't have a feeling what he said, except one day when I got to work, the first time I remember, actually 2 times I remember really feeling it, but this was with an audience of just in time for foster youth in San Diego. And these were helping foster youth that had graduated, so-called graduated from the system, meaning at 18, their foster parents were no longer in their life, really.
Yeah.
And I didn't even imagine that could be the case because I have loving parents. And that to have no parents at 18, no one to guide you, no one to care about you. And then to see this group of women of all shapes and sizes and colors and all the other stuff, to see them as pure love, that was an amazing experience for me.
Oh, wow.
And that to feel that, I can feel that moment even to this day.
I feel it when you're telling me.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, so yeah, thanks for bringing that up, and thanks for what you do. And one of the things I talk about getting over fear is if we're connected to something higher than us, bigger than us, that can melt so much in terms of fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you were talking earlier before we got started here, something in 5th, 6th grade, something switched for you. Do you want to tell that story?
Oh, yeah. When I was in 5th or 6th grade, my dad somehow decided or was worried or was afraid that I wasn't developing properly, whatever that meant. So he took me to our family physician that, you know, probably had delivered my mother and me and my, you know, all the, you know, he was a multi-generational family doctor back in those days. And so he examined me and he didn't really find anything wrong, but he didn't necessarily say, oh no, you're fine either. And so I left that day feeling like, oh my gosh, maybe there's something wrong with me. And over the next few years, that sort of became a filter that I saw myself through. I was not very athletic. I couldn't run very fast. I couldn't throw the ball. You know, you compare yourself to other people, and in some ways, I thought of myself as better than others. But in many ways, I thought of myself as not nearly as good as others. And so I always came back to, oh well, there must be something wrong with me. And that went on for decades. I mean, even to the degree as how shows how stupid it was. I would be driving down the street. This is not recent, fortunately. I'd be driving down the street and it would start to rain, but it wasn't raining very hard. And I would put my wipers on, the windshield wipers, and a car would come the other way and they wouldn't have their windshield wipers on. And I think, oh my gosh, I must be doing it wrong.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was this almost silent mantra. There must be something wrong with me. And when I went to college, before I went to college, I had to get a physical exam. And I went back to this very same doctor, family doctor, and he, you know, did the whole exam. And I was terrified of getting a chest x-ray because I just knew he was going to find something wrong. And of course, there was nothing wrong. He said I was in perfect health. I was like, really? Are you sure? And I was like, wait, are you sure? I mean, I was grateful. Yeah. But so fast forward, you know, over the decades, I prayed about this a lot and I made little victories here and there. And I realized that, well, maybe it's about 2 years ago, actually, I was praying one morning and thinking about this, and I had this epiphany that all these things that I was thinking were wrong had never been wrong with me. And I realized you were worried about that for no reason. And then out of the blue, well, I had been thinking a lot about how I had just written a blog post about, and it's an allegory, and I've actually done a podcast episode on this, an allegory of this stranger comes to your door and knocks and offers to help you clean up your house. And it's a total disaster. Yeah. And you say, no, that's all right. Well, it turns out to be Jesus in disguise, and he helps you clean your house and get your life in order. And, you know, we usually don't want to admit that we got these problems. And so I was in this mode of thinking, okay, I'm going to let this Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of truth and love come into me and kind of wash me from the inside out. Usually we think of baptism being some external process. I think baptism is a inner spiritual cleansing. And so this is kind of where I was for a couple of weeks before I had this epiphany. And I was praying one morning and God basically said to me, there is nothing wrong with you. Mm-hmm. And it was like I could breathe. I felt like I was breathing deep, fresh air that I hadn't breathed in a real long time. And I realized at that point that I had been using this idea, I had been thinking of this idea, there's something wrong with me, as I said, as this filter that I looked at everything I did, and I've been sort of cleaning it off a little bit. I've been getting, bits and pieces of it away. But here, the whole thing came down, and I realized there is nothing wrong with me. Now, does that mean I don't make mistakes still? Of course I do. But, and that I never made a mistake. No. But the analogy that helps me back to this cleansing process is, when I was a kid, you'd go out, I would go out and I'd play in the mud, and I'd come in, and my parents, sometimes I was muddier than other times, and I would have to take a bath. Well, sometimes the dirt came off easily. Sometimes you had to scrub a little harder. All these mistakes, the sins that I've committed or whatever, these emotions of there's something wrong with me because of whatever, that's like the mud. That's not really part of who I am as a child of God, because he sees me and us, everyone, as his child. He loves all of us equally. I think he sees beyond the mud that we've either been pushed in or jumped in and smeared all over ourselves, or someone else has thrown the mud at us, these things that happen to us in the world. I think he doesn't see us that way. And it helped me realize, oh, all that, there's something wrong with me, that's just like the mud, and that can be washed away. It's not part of who I am. And it gave me this sense of freedom from this fear that I'd been carrying around for 40 or 50 years. And it was really amazing to experience that.
When it happened, when you had this epiphany and this feeling, is it ever gone away since then, or has it always stayed with you?
Oh, it comes back a little bit, but it's like a momentary thing. Well, maybe several moments, maybe a day, but it's not the silent white noise that was in my head for so long, because I recognize now that that's not really part of me. That God, it says in the first book in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 1, God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. Well, that means me too, and you, and everyone. And so I have to learn to see myself that way. It doesn't mean I ignore my mistakes. Hopefully I'll make fewer of them, but I still make mistakes. But I see that in a different light. I said, oh, well, that's just some mud I need to wash away. I don't know. Did I answer your question?
You really, yeah, you did. And I love the metaphor and the story you use there to share it. And this mud is not permanent. And
Yeah.
one of the things I talk about it, and I love this gentleman and author, I can't think of his, Steve Bivens, I think, pointed out this commercial. And you can see kind of the power in this commercial. Choosy mothers choose Jif.
Okay, I'm waiting for the line, the tie-in here.
Well, the one little line, choosy mothers choose Jif. If you're not a choosy mother and you're not choosing Jif, you're not a good mother.
Oh, yeah.
And all these deficiency programs are being put out into the world that you are deficient unless you do this thing.
Right. Do you need something external to yourself?
Yeah. And so it's 24/7, and even well-meaning parents are sending these deficiency programs out because they've been programmed in these deficiency programs.
Right.
And I get, so I tell other people in lots of groups, because I'm a professional speaker, I was afraid in speaking because, get this, I sweat.
Oh, you're the only one, right?
I know. I actually, and I love that you laugh at that. I felt like the only one, at the time. Now I played sports all my life, and no coach ever said, don't sweat so much, Chris. But other people wouldn't want to guard me because I sweat so much. And I'd heard a commercial, never let them see you sweat. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's a good defense, right? Keep people away from you.
Yeah. No, I wish it would work that way, but then when it's serious, they would guard me.
No, well, so I missed what you said about, you said something about nobody ever said something. I don't know.
No coach ever said to me, hey, don't sweat so much.
Right.
So at least like athletics was a I would push out of my mind mostly, not all the way, what other kids said, but it was in my head, and it
Right.
really negatively impacted me in speaking, and sometimes stopped me from speaking in moments. And now, you know, if you can see yourself kind of, as you're saying, my language is more, you can see yourself as whole with a WHOLE instead of filled with holes.
Yeah.
Um, um, it's
Yeah.
a very different feeling. And as you know, as we talked earlier, you know, if you can see the love in other people, you can see the divine in other human beings and in yourself. Wow, what a world it could be.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah. Well, James, I absolutely love what you shared. If someone wanted to reach and connect with you, how would they do that?
Well, the best way probably is at my website. It's called thebiblespeakstoyou.com. And check out my podcast. I used to blog more regularly, but now that I'm podcasting, which is once a week, I don't write quite as many blogs, but check out the podcast and you can subscribe to that. Just put your name and email, and I'll put you on my notification list. You can find me you can find the podcast any place you like to listen to podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotter, Stitchify. I mean, there are new ones all the time. Podchaser, Good Pods. I mean, they're everywhere. And I'm also on Instagram, The Bible Speaks to You, and on Facebook, just James Early. There are probably a million James Earlys. But anyway, connect with me. I'd love to. If I can help you in any way, any of your listeners, you know, get a better sense of what this divine love is all about, I'd be happy to do that. Oh, you know, one thing I would say is, I don't know if you'll have any kind of show notes, but I actually had a blog post on this very experience I shared with you today, and they might like to read the whole thing. So if
Absolutely. Here's how I do that right now in my fancy way. You send that to me, and I'll absolutely put that in the description.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. That's
Yeah.
great.
So I mean, I love what you shared, James, and the stories and the metaphor of washing off the mud. And sometimes maybe we have to scrub a little bit harder with that mud to get rid of it. And um, but I think when you feel a divine love or wholeness inside of yourself, life becomes so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, because you're not carrying around your own mental, emotional baggage, and you're not judging other people's emotional, mental baggage. And that gives you a lot of freedom to appreciate the good and maneuver more adroitly in between events.
Absolutely. And when you talked about like at fifth and sixth grade, you know, some of my studies in mindset, it talked about that our self judgment starts to click in right around there. You can have kids that are doing just fine with both different kinds of mindsets. If you divide it into two, like the growth and fixed mindset from Carol Dweck's book, doing very fine, just same. But about that age is when the switch happens. When you believe you're bad at math or whatever you're bad at, that starts to become so much more difficult, and you start judging yourself harshly.
Yeah, I did that.
Oh, I did that. So I feel you when you talk about, you know, those feelings of inadequacy. You know, I've felt it so powerfully, and to let that go.
Well, and you know what I've realized? I've talked to other successful people. They've written books, they've been on stages like you, and they still have this imposter syndrome sometimes. And I'm realizing maybe a little of that is good, because I don't want to be around someone who thinks they are the solution to all the universe's problems. You know, their ego is a little too much front and center. And so I think we need to have some humility. That doesn't mean beating yourself up, though. Humility, I think, means realizing how incredibly fabulous you are, but that God made you that way. You didn't make yourself that way. You're not personally responsible for that. You just, that's the way God made you.
Well, I would even say, you know, that if someone knows how fabulous they are, hopefully they know how fabulous everyone else is.
Exactly.
And I love this idea, you know, and one of my teachers, Arjun Ardha, wrote in one of his books that he had this awakening in a sense, and he could see everyone. Oh my gosh, I can see the divine in them. Oh my gosh, They have it too. Oh my gosh.
Well, and this is the thing that I have a friend that says he can't wait to die and get to heaven and see Jesus. And I said, you know, Jesus said, if you do whatever you do to anyone else, you're doing to me. I mean, what if we saw everyone else as if they were Jesus? If we treated everyone else as if they were Jesus, you know, that's the same thing you're saying about seeing the divine, that divine love in everyone else. Whoa, that would change things pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And James, thank you for sharing such a reminder to me, you know, again, to I'm gonna, you know, make that a mantra terms in my life, see the divine in others, know the divine in myself. And it's powerful, especially for dropping fear in this. Again, I get any bigger purpose actually you find can help you drop fear. And if you find
Right.
the biggest purpose or whatever, it really can help you drop fear.
Absolutely.
And I would love to see all the brothers and sisters out there of every race, creed, color, sexual orientation connect to each other and see the divine in each other.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So thank you, James Early, for being with me today. This was a joy for me, and I feel uplifted. So I would suggest anyone that feels compelled by James' story to absolutely connect with him. If you're watching this video, my guess is the connection is somewhere down below here that you can connect with James. Thank you so much, James.
Thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure.